Welcome back to the Daily Move. Today we've got a quick hip mobility workout. All you're going to need is some kind of stool. What I'm using here is just a cooler, and you'll want something soft for your foot to be on, so like a yoga mat or a towel just to kind of soften that up, and then just some space to start moving. So we're going to get started here in a seated position with both of our feet in front of us. And what we're going to do is we're going to hug our knees, sitting up nice and tall, just feeling a little bit of a stretch here. And now we're going to slump over those knees, really tucking that chin, rounding the back, and just relaxing here. Let gravity take over. You can also do this in a seated position if you find this uncomfortable. So next we're going to start some easy roll downs here. So you can see every time I'm going down just a little bit further here. And when I come back up, I'm going to pull my knees to go back up into a nice and tall seated position, being a little bit of a stretch on my back. So next our legs are extended in front of us, and we're going to rotate the leg bone inside the hip socket. So what I'm doing here is my hand is on my leg bone and I'm turning my kneecap in and then turning my kneecap out. So you can go slow or you can speed it up, or you can do a combination of both. So next we're going to cross one leg over the other, a figure four, and then bend the bottom knee. We're going to feel this in the glute. So you can see here I'm pushing that knee away from my body and then relaxing it. You want to do this 10 times. Once you finish it for 10 repetitions, you're then going to hold it down. Now another option, if you don't like that one, is you can lay on your back and do the same thing. You'll notice that it will give you a little bit more range of motion to work on that. Again, you can hold that down for your 10-second stretch, or you can come back up if you don't feel that and you need more of an intense stretch. So here I'm using my arm just to make sure that I can feel that in my glute. And now I'm switching sides. So we're doing the same thing. We're wiggling it for 10 repetitions. You can do this seated, you can do this laying on your back, or you could even do it seated in a chair. And once you finish those 10 reps, then you want to hold it out for 10 seconds. So next you're going to lay on your back. You're going to cross your leg all the way over so that it hooks it over. And what we're doing is we're pulling the opposite knee to the opposite armpit. So here I'm bringing my right knee to my left armpit. This is getting the piriformis, so you'll feel this in your glute. And you want to do between 5 to 10 repetitions here. I find it takes a little bit of time to actually sit and hold it, so I like to do between 5 and 6 reps here, just with a little bit of a longer hold. Once you finish your reps, you're going to finish off with a 10-second hold towards that armpit, just feeling a nice stretch into the glute. Make sure your body doesn't roll with this. So my rib cage should be on the floor the entire time. When you're finished, you can switch sides. So once you're done there, what you're gonna do is tick-tock the legs, just separate them so that the knees aren't touching. And so you can stay here down on the ground, lying on your back doing this windshield wipers, or you can come up and it's gonna look like that 90-90 switch. So you can choose the version that suits you best. So next we're gonna sit up nice and tall, and then we're gonna hinge at the hips, reaching for our feet. It's okay if you don't touch your feet. And now we're doing a traveling butterfly. So I'm letting my knees come out to the side, and I'm using my heel to pull my glutes closer towards that. And you're also gonna feel a stretch here in the shoulders, especially if you kind of press the chest towards the ceiling there. And you're just alternating between the two at your own pace. Feel free to stay in either position for a little longer. So next we're going to go into a butterfly pose here, and you're going to be pushing the knees down. And option number one here, you can push one knee down and add in a spinal twist, or you can just hang out in butterfly. So here's another option here where you're in butterfly, but then you're creating circles at the hip. So once you're done here, you're going to want to grab your stool or your chair. And this is a variation of a runner stretch. So I'm keeping my foot planted, and then I'm pushing my knee out to the side to feel a stretch into my hip socket. You don't want to be forceful here. Just very gentle, pushing that knee out. Noticing if one side's easier than the other. As you can see here, my right side is a lot easier than my left. So I'm just showing you a different angle here. You can see my back leg is actually bent here, just to feel a deeper stretch. I'm gonna feel it in the hip flexor of the leg that's off of the chair. And then I'm also gonna feel it a little bit into the hip with the leg up onto the chair. Be mindful here that your foot's not rolling out. We wanna keep your foot flat and just work on that hip external rotation. You should not be feeling this one in your knee, so if you are, I wouldn't do this, or I would back out of the range of motion. So I decided to repeat this 3 times per leg. If you want, you can stay on one side for 30 to 60 seconds before switching, or you can make it a little bit more dynamic and go a little quicker. So next I'm grabbing my yoga mat here just to make the edge a little bit softer for me to go into a variation of pigeon pose here to get into that glute. I find when I do glute or pigeon on the floor, I don't feel it in my glute, but when I do it this way, I can really feel it in my butt cheek. If you feel it better on the floor, that's another option. You can go straight into pigeon on the floor without having your leg raised. So you can choose to stay here or you can choose to switch sides. I went into this stretch twice. But again, if you just feel like holding it for a little bit longer, feel free to do so as well. I'm going back to that starting leg. If you stayed on that first leg, it's a good time to switch to the second leg now. I'm switching sides. So we're gonna go into a King Arthur stretch here. So my shoelaces are up on the box, or you can do this up against the wall, bending the knee down, tucking the pelvis under, and then leaning forward slightly. You should feel the hip flexor on the knee that's touching the ground. So now we're gonna walk out on kind of a 30 to 45 degree angle outwards. And now you want to push that hip flexor, the one that we're stretching, down towards the ground to get a deeper stretch. And then come back up. You should notice that you get a little bit more range here. We're going to go back down to the ground and create a spinal twist here. So we're going to do 3 towards that knee. And then we're going to repeat this again, but do 3 to the opposite direction. Watch your balance when you twist here. Your legs should stay completely still, and then you want to rotate your spine. So next, what we're going to do here is kind of like a lizard pose. So you're going to hold the normal King Arthur stretch for another 10 to 15 seconds. And then what we're going to do is we're going to put our hands down onto the ground. And just like what we were doing on the cooler box earlier, we're going to push that kneecap out. But this time we're going to allow the foot to actually fall out to the side. So you can see from this angle a little bit better how I allowed that knee just to kind of fall out to the side. Okay, we're switching sides. So repeating King Arthur on the opposite leg now. And we're going to go through that same series. So arms come down, and then I'm going to push my hip towards the floor. It's going to change the sensation. Coming back up into that King Arthur, seeing if you get a little bit more range here. And it's totally okay to have some cushioning underneath that knee. So now we're going to go back into that spinal twist, doing 3 rotations towards the front leg, and then 3 rotations away. Going back up into King Arthur. And then the last one's going to be that lizard pose. So hands to the floor here, and I'm pushing that knee away, sinking my hips closer towards the floor, and just hanging out here. Remember to breathe into it, and if you've gone too far, just come back out of it. So now we're going to go into a deep squat. And I have prayer with my hands, and I'm pushing with my elbows out towards the knee. So here we're working on hip internal rotation. I will eventually show you an easier version for this. This might be a little bit difficult for some people, but you can even try sitting this in a chair and just turning that leg inwards. And if you want more of an advanced option, you can do this twisting one where I'm letting that knee dive into the center. So now we're doing external rotation here. So you can see that I'm bringing that leg out to the side, kind of like what we were doing with the lizard pose. So that was the 2 harder versions. Here is an easier version sitting. So you can start with your foot planted on the floor there, and then you're just turning your foot out, or you can lift your foot up, creating that rotation. And then the other one here is rotating it, kind of like you're trying to kick a ball away from you. And you can just alternate between those different motions. So your option, I would do one or the other. You don't need to do both. So here's another variation to work on that hip rotation. So this is hip internal rotation. So again, all 3 of these are just different variations of each other. It's good to mix it up, and it's also good to start with where you're best at and then start working into the areas that you're having more difficulties with. So again, this is external rotation. So now you've got 3 different options there. You can do it in a low squat, you can do it sitting in a chair, or lying on your stomach. So I'd pick one out of those 3 variations to do, but try them all out to see what you like. And then you want to do between 8 to 10 repetitions of external rotation and then 8 to 10 repetitions of internal rotation. So here I'm getting myself ready to go into frog. I always like to do a few seconds into tadpole just to get my knees and my hips ready for it. And now I'm slowly sinking into that frog position. Take your time. And you can just stay here breathing through this, or what you can do is slide yourself forward and then pick up a leg and bring it back down. That's completely optional. Again, a different way to work that internal rotation. So now we're going to go into that floor pigeon, kind of like what we were doing on the chair earlier, except this time what we're gonna do is we're gonna sink the hip down and then we're gonna pop it back up. So we're wiggling here. So again, another way to work external rotation of that hip. Once you've done a few repetitions, if you'd like, you can go down and just hold this position. And we're repeating the same thing on the opposite leg now. So you can choose to continue to wiggle that, or you can go into more of a static stretch here where you're just holding and just breathing into that position. So our last pose here is a straddle stance, standing. And all I'm doing is just walking my hands over to one foot, doing a spinal rotation, and then repeating that to the other side. So you can go as fast or as slow as you'd like through this. And at the end here, I'm just going to hang, letting gravity pull everything down towards the floor. If you want, you can cross your arms to make your top half even heavier to stay down there. And that's a wrap for our hips today. Let me know what you think. And if you have any suggestions for future videos, please let me know in the comments. Have an excellent day. Happy moving, everyone.